Hi everyone, this is Lillian from livingwithcharlotte.com. I am the creator of Living with Charlotte, and that is a website where you can get all the latest Charlotte Mason curriculum, resources, events, groups, really anything you can think of, anything that you need for your Charlotte Mason education. So I'm obviously not in my home. I'm in this beautiful hotel room in Nashville, Tennessee. I just wrapped up with the Charlotte Mason Institute summer conference that was held at Lookout Mountain in Georgia, and I'm flying out of Nashville. That's why I'm here. And by the way, Nashville is a very interesting city. It kind of felt like I was dropped in the middle of a frat party that turned into a city. So you can probably guess, if you're familiar with this area, what part of Nashville I'm in right now. But anyways, it's been fun exploring the city. But I wanted to get on here. I know this isn't kind of a typical video for my YouTube channel, although I just started, so I mean, what's typical, right? But anyways, I just got back from the Charlotte Mason Institute conference, and like I'm sure many of us are feeling from after that conference, there is an ocean of living ideas that has just come at us. I mean, it was such a full conference. And I wanted to just come on here to share my narrations. Like, none of this is prepared or, written down. This is really just off the cuff. I really want to share with someone. So I decided to share with you all what my lingering takeaways have been in this moment, because I think there will be more as I ponder and meditate on all the things that I got to hear and learn from this weekend. But before I get into all of that, I wanted to give a shout out to the sponsor of this video, Flip Flop Languages. You might already know them as Flip Flop Spanish, but they are now Flip Flop Languages because now they include French and German resources. So Flip Flop Languages is a Charlotte Mason aligned curriculum that introduces words as pictures first and then builds towards real conversations. One gentle, low prep program for the whole family in Spanish and now French and German, and it's been voted one of the top homeschool foreign language curriculum by many of the leading homeschool curriculum reviewers. So you can find the link in the description box below and go ahead and check it out. Okay, so the conference. By the way, for those of you who did attend the conference, I would love it if you have any type of social media account or anything like that. I would love to hear your narrations and your takeaways from the conference, because I'm sure we all took something away that was very different and unique to our born personhood, right? So I would love to hear what your takeaways have been. But these are my takeaways, top of mind, and in no particular order. Here we go. Okay. One of the workshops I attended was led by Angelica. Oh gosh, I might butcher your name. I'm so sorry, Angelica. I loved meeting her, by the way. Angelica Kajiwara. And she actually wrote the citizenship curriculum for Alvieri, and she is getting her PhD in like a liberal arts education. And part of that, she's been studying Charlotte Mason's philosophy and has been writing, and I think I think she has a publication coming up about Charlotte Mason's philosophy. So, Angelica, her workshop, she talked about Plutarch and why Charlotte Mason decided to use Plutarch for her schools. So there was a time of upheaval in Great Britain at that time, and Charlotte Mason was seeing the danger of compulsory education for ages 5 to 10 being a way for the government to basically control the flow of information for their citizens. They were coming out of a time of war, and all of a sudden they had just an exponentially enormous amount, growing amount of voters in their country. And in order for the government to try to have control then over this new crop of voters, and Charlotte Mason, in response to that, wanted to propose that we allow citizens, we allow these new voters to have a moral imagination, to ignite a moral imagination for them, to basically be able to decide what is right or wrong for themselves individually without having to rely on what the government is telling them, and then to basically entrust their citizens to make the right decision. That's why Charlotte Mason brought in Plutarch as a way to kind of ignite that moral imagination. So that was kind of my takeaway from her workshop. It really gives this higher purpose to then why we would study Plutarch. And it's not so much to just get through the lives and, check it off, but to ignite that moral imagination within our students so that they can see, what is, they can be invited into self-reflection over, would I have made that choice for that person that we're studying? Or would I be prone to making that mistake? So Angelica was giving kind of this invitation for us to really reflect on not only the characters that are in Plutarch's lives, but to invite self-reflection and to be able to connect with the characters and put ourselves in their positions to see, would we have made that choice? How complex these characters actually are. None of them were 100% good and 100% bad. It's always a mix because they're human. And I think she talked about these like character simulator questions. I believe that's in the Alvieri curriculum, but essentially it's, an invitation to that self-reflection. So again, really great workshop. Another workshop I went to was entitled Mother Culture for a More Just Future, and this was by Ashley Allen. And I think my takeaway from hers was how socially minded Charlotte Mason was, because, if we're familiar with some of her background, she had done this experiment, I guess. So she worked with a school that was in the coal mining community and worked with these poor children who didn't have access to the type of education that kids back in those days who were part of kind of the upper elite classes, they obviously didn't have access to that type of education. Now, Charlotte Mason, her vision and her heart to reach these under-resourced children, I think that's it's a story that I've heard of, but I think through Ashley's workshop and through her exhorting us to think about what is moving our own hearts to right something that is wrong in the world, because Charlotte Mason was trying to right this particular wrong, that these poor children didn't have access to a living education. Every time I think about that, it's a very sobering thought, because as a homeschool mom and as someone who, genuinely I want to provide my kids with a very rich, beautiful living education so that, they can grow up to become, mature people. They would love God. They would be living a very fulfilling life in pursuit of God's will. And when I get stuck in the weeds about like, oh gosh, which living book do I need to choose for this? Or, oh no, we didn't finish that lesson, or we didn't finish that book, we didn't get to this or that, and I get stuck in the weeds a lot. But when I think about Charlotte Mason's heart for the poor especially, and how that was one of her main drivers for wanting to bring forth her philosophy of education, it's sobering, because it it reminds me how many children in our world do not have access or do not receive even even if they are in a well-resourced public school or well-resourced private school even, how many of them do not have this type of living education that is being given to them. And it's sobering. It kind of lifts me out of my own little minuscule worry and concern in that moment. It lifts me out of the weeds and reminds me, okay, there, there's there are bigger things that matter more than just whether or not I'm going to be choosing the exact perfect right book or the exact the perfect watercolor supplies or whatever it is that's kind of burdening my heart. There's a sort of like, okay, I need to zoom out and not stress so much about that and just have some perspective. I think that's kind of my biggest takeaway, and to be reminded of some of the ways that God has stirred my own heart for wanting to right what is wrong in our world. So I hope that makes sense. There's so much there that I could dig into, but that just top of mind, that was my takeaway from that. Okay, this session was just really surprising how excited I got because it's kind of a very obscure, like ultra nerdy workshop, but this particular one, it was led by Dr. Deanie Van Pelt, and she is the kind of the head chair, I believe. Sorry if I'm like butchering her title, but she is the chair for the Charlotte Mason Institute. She's kind of the head of the CMI. And this particular workshop was entitled Charlotte Mason Centenary Monographs, What's Next for Series 2. So essentially, what are the next academic publications that CMI is going to produce? Now, I know that sounds so nerdy, and at first when I saw that, to be honest, I was like, what is this session going to be? But I am so glad I went, and it was really a session to brainstorm around how we can elevate the academic rigor, the academic conversations around Charlotte Mason's philosophy. Now, if you know me, I'm all about philosophy. I studied it in college. I love discussing all things philosophy. I love all things philosophical and having those discussions. Now, this this session, this workshop, it was, I think all the people who attended this session, I was so encouraged, so invigorated, because it was kind of like, wow, we are really sharing the same heart, the same mind to really bring forth Charlotte Mason's philosophy, not only to the homeschool world, but to the overall educational spaces, the conversations that people are having about education, and how Charlotte Mason really is a valid, more than valid, a very good response to some of the maladies we're seeing, especially in the public school education. And her philosophy is not for just homeschool moms. And her philosophy really needs to be known by more and more people who have power, who have influence over the educational landscape. So yeah, it was a very fascinating, very invigorating conversation that took place there. And I'm really excited. I know I'm really nerding out here, but I'm really excited to see what will come forth. I did want to share this book that I purchased from CMI. This is what they've kind of positioned as the first academic textbook about Charlotte Mason. So It was pretty pricey, but I got at least the conference conference discount on this. But if that is something that interests you, if you like to read academic work about education, then I would definitely suggest this. And it is very much academic textbook pricing on this. And if you check out the link, you'll see why I said that. But some of these chapters, I mean, there's very interesting chapters here that I'm looking forward to reading, like in particular, like Lisa Kadora's chapter, Charlotte Mason's Philosophy and Practice as an Antidote to Modernist Epistemology. Yeah, that kind of stuff gets me going, guys. Some of you may know Amber O'Neill Johnston. She wrote a chapter, How to Reach Beyond the Bounds of Time and Place, Supporting a Diverse and Dynamic 21st Century Education. I mean, I know that's going to be really good. This is going to be interesting. So, chapter 10 is United States of America, Students and Stories of a Charlotte Mason Education in a Rural Mining County by Nicole Hutchinson. So, Nicole Hutchinson, who I just learned about from this conference, she has been heading up a charter school in somewhere in rural Pennsylvania. And she's essentially doing what Charlotte Mason did over 100 years ago and bringing that philosophy of education into a rural mining community. So, yeah, I think that is so fascinating. So this is going to be my, on my TBR, this textbook like book, but it's about Charlotte Mason. So I know I'm going to love it. Okay, next. I went to Nancy Kelly's workshop on meditation, the narration of the heart. And what was so neat about what she said about meditation is and I'm totally paraphrasing her words here, but my takeaway was that meditation, it moves further than just that first narration. So she gave kind of this 4-step guide of how we can meditate. So we would first read, and then mark, learn, and inwardly digest. That word inwardly digest, it's for us to narrate again and again over time, where we're pondering and looking at this same living idea, these even like new thoughts of God over and over again, so that we're digging in deeper into that. So I think that made me think about how we don't need to pack our lessons. We don't need to pack our feast that we're giving our children. We need to give them space to also be able to meditate on things, to meditate about the same ideas over and over again. So, yeah, I thought of how I can scale back and make sure that they have that space to meditate about certain things and be able to not just recall, but to let this have time to sink into their souls. So that was kind of my takeaway from that, and it was a beautiful time. Gosh, there's so much. I know I can't cover everything. Oh, there was a really fun workshop on intentional screen lessons by Christina Thomas, and we talked about how there really is such a thing as living TV shows and living movies, and movies as being an art form. I think that was definitely something that I was on the same page with her about, and I was inspired and encouraged how she used different TV shows and movies as the main text for the lesson. And she would break up the movies into little chunks, and they would narrate. Her children would narrate on it, and they would explore some of the things that they were learning, whether it's a movie that showed maybe the historical time period, that showed the culture of that region, even. So, really fascinating. She even talked about video games that have living qualities to them. So, again, not every video game or TV would have, you know, those living qualities, but I think the fact that there are living movies and videos and whatnot, that is definitely something to consider. So I really enjoyed that one. And lastly, okay, here's what I'll end on is I think my favorite keynote was by Dr. Kelly M. Kapik. I've never heard of him before, but I'm definitely going to be reading his book. I'm forgetting the title of his book, but I'll make sure to put a little graphic here when I look it up later. So that's his book right there. So I'm definitely going to read that one. But he talked about, oh my gosh, okay. Sometimes it's so hard to summarize everything into one sentence. Okay, but I'm looking at my notes. He talked about how so for moms specifically, right, we struggle with this this idea that we need to be able to do everything. This is like we all struggle with this. We all feel guilty at the end of the day about how much we don't get done and how much there still is to do. And and he talks about how the church needs to provide a more biblically sound theology in response to that struggle. And he says right now, sometimes the response of the church has been, or the response of well-meaning Christians has been, well, let me give you my, 5 tips on how to get more done or how to do everything that is on your to-do list and how not to get distracted and how to actually be that mom who can do everything. And he talks about how that is not helpful, and that is actually not biblically sound as a response to our modern day world of everything coming at us and having to get everything done. So he says that our finitude as human beings is not a sin, that we are creatures. We are meant to be finite, right? This is mind blowing, but at the same time, it's like, yes, we already know this, right? And that Christians, we need to have a humility, not that's only based in like, oh, I'm a sinner and I need to repent, and that's why I need to be humble, but rather our humility needs to be based on something even more fundamental, that we are created beings, and that means we have limitations. We are finite. And that's the foundation for where our humility needs to come from. We were meant to depend on God. We were meant to depend on our neighbors, on our families, on our friends. We were meant to depend on creation because that is how God created us. We were meant to have limitations. So that's my summary of that. But oh man, I think that message is something I need to put on repeat for myself. And I'm sure for many of us who are homeschool moms, or just people, really, like just people, we need to keep hearing this because this is a genuine biblical theology that we need to come back to and not try to become this superhuman super mom, like trying to, like increase our capacity and make sure we're even more productive. I think there's something very humbling in a very right way when we think of ourselves as being finite beings. Anyways, I'm going to read that book by Dr. Kelly because, yeah, that's going to be a good one. So overall, oh man, this has been such a good conference. I loved every single person that I met at the conference, and this is why. Because this is kind of my takeaway from the workshop I gave, and I talked about a living education in the age of AI, and I'll probably speak about that in my upcoming videos down the road. But my grand takeaway even reflecting on my workshop and some of the things that other people have been saying, and getting to meet some wonderful, wonderful people, my grand takeaway is that we all have minds. Like every I know that's like so simple, but I learned so much from every single person that I talked to. So if you're watching this and I met you for the first time at the conference, or I met you for more than the first time at that conference, please know that I learned something from you. I learned something in our conversations together. And I realize it's because we have minds. We are able to think. We have original thought. So that was so exciting to reaffirm, and that we all as born persons have fresh new thoughts to share with each other. And I think that's something that I really appreciate about CMI. Again, I'm not paid to talk about CMI. I'm really just sharing from my experience from this conference. And I know I haven't gone to many homeschool conferences, but man, CMI really, nothing else has compared to this conference. And here's why. Here, from my perspective, here's why. Is they have so many people from all walks of life, whether they're credentialed in some way or not, and they're just normal homeschool moms, which I think just, I don't think that gives a good enough service to who each of us are, right? But there is so much to learn from one another, because we have living ideas within us. We don't have to be only looking for the living ideas in books. It's from one another, right? Mind to mind. One of the quotes that I used in my workshop about AI is that Charlotte Mason, she talks about how knowledge is passed like a torch from mind to mind. And whether that's from a book, whether that's from conversations with each other, I mean, like I had a conversation like really late into the night with some lovely woman, and I ended up getting locked out of my room because, yeah, that was a whole other story. That was quite an adventure. But the invigorating conversations we had, where we could have gone on much longer than 1 a.m. in the morning, right? That's all because we have living minds. We have living ideas that are swarming inside of us, and we want to share it with each other. And I have to believe that of every single person. And I want to believe that of every single person. Really, anyone can give a workshop, because there are things that really hit us and strike us as being vital inside of our minds. And another mom who I was talking with also said this. She was like, I realized these workshops, we're just basically sharing our narrations with each other. And I'm like, yeah, it really is. Like, what's so great about CMI is they invite anyone to come and share their living ideas with the broader community. And of course, they can't choose everyone that does submit something, but oh man, like I look at the titles of these workshops and I missed out on so much. Okay, I really shouldn't frame it that way, but then there were just so many people here that I could have learned from, regardless of if they were well known or didn't have even any kind of social media platform or any book that they've written. There was so much to learn from so many people, not just from the speakers, but from the attendees. Like that's who I'm also thinking about and talking about too. And right, this is so invigorating to know that so many of us are learning, and we're thinking, and we're sharing those ideas with one another. And this is the future. This is the future for our children and for ourselves, right? Like Charlotte Mason, oh, one thing that I'm also struck by again and again is that when she did her experiment with the coal mining school, she was in her 70s. So here I am in my 40s. Man, I got a lot more years ahead of me of good work that I could be doing, good work that hopefully the education that my children are receiving, that they will be inspired to do. So anyways, I am gonna get carried away here. So I need to stop. Like I actually need to check out of my hotel room in 2 minutes. So I'm gonna stop the video here. Again, if this is a video that you've enjoyed, again, this, it's going to be this type of stuff that I will share on the YouTube channel. Go ahead and click like and subscribe. And my goal is to reach my first 1,000 subscribers. So if you subscribe, that lets me know that you enjoy this type of content. It'll give me encouragement to keep coming on here and sharing my narrations, sharing my thoughts out loud with you, and of course to review Charlotte Mason curriculum. So please like, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.